Could open source AI be America's biggest weapon and best weapon against China? A recent article on theblaze.com claims that it could be, and that Donald Trump can fix America's stalled progress in this field under Joe Biden. Here to discuss is Jim Rickards. He's done it all. He's an investment banker and author of his latest book, MoneyGPT. So, Jim, do you agree with this idea that open source AI is the best, if not at least one of the top weapons that we have against China?
Yeah, I mean, in general, Joe, open source is a very good idea. It allows talents from a lot of different areas, independent contractors, large firms, small firms, all to contribute to whatever the development is. So, as just taking that alone, it's a very good idea. You'll get much faster development, much more creativity from an open source code than you will by trying to keep everything secret. And that's kind of hard to do anyway. Having said that, it doesn't mean that an AI is powerful and it has a lot of beneficial impacts. But having said that, it doesn't mean that everything's wonderful. There are a lot of dangers in AI, dangers and flaws in GPT. GPT is the branch of AI that you can give it a question, what they call a prompt, and it'll do your homework for you, or write essays, or give you pictures or images or whatever. It basically creates written and visual output, but it's a branch of AI. But all those things, again, on the whole, beneficial. Open source is a very good idea, but there are a lot of dangers that I discuss in my writings and my new book that people should be aware of.
Jim, let go into that a little bit more, because there's a raging debate right now, and many of the people who ended up supporting Donald Trump in tech did so because they're worried about the regulation of AI. And typical of regulatory state, it would help the large players keep everyone else out and develop the sort of super AI that bits out there that everyone knows, the players everyone knows. So right. The interpretation is, look, we're pro-Trump because we need to get the regulatory state out of this. Having said that, of course, as you just pointed out, this is extremely dangerous, and there are still going to be many large players involved. So talk more about those dangers and how you kind of see regulation being used and not being used.
Sure. I mean, there's a difference between regulating AI on the one hand and regulating some of the technology behind it. When I say technology, I'm actually talking more about the hardware side, the chips, things that NVIDIA produces. There are export controls, and there's actually a company in the Netherlands that makes the machinery that makes the chips. So it's kind of the ultimate source in terms of the most advanced chips. So you're not going to be able to regulate AI. That's like saying I'm going to regulate the sunshine or the air. Well, good luck with that. The AI is going to get out there for the reasons you mentioned, which is a lot of coding and open source. So that's there. It's in Alexa, it's in Siri, it's in your refrigerator. Your refrigerator tells you to change the water filter because it has a semiconductor in there that's monitoring humidity and time, and it's telling you what to do. So it's on your dashboard. It's everywhere. So you're not going to be able to really regulate AI. Having said that, there are some choke points, and they are the major chip manufacturers, AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA. And again, this is one company in the Netherlands that has the most advanced equipment to make chips. Then Taiwan Semiconductor is another one. There, you're dealing with a relatively small set of players who have the most advanced technology, and the U.S. has a lot of influence over that, either because they're U.S. companies, which would be the easiest one, or they rely on U.S. patents, or we have export controls, et cetera. So there, what you're trying to do, and I think this could be done successfully and probably does need to be done for national security reasons, is limit the export and the dissemination of the most advanced hardware technology on the one hand, while recognizing that the software itself is just going to go its own way.
Well, I want to look at the Treasury Department. Donald Trump has picked hedge fund manager Scott Bessent, and I want to know your thoughts on this pick and what you think he needs to do once he gets in office. Right.
It's a great question, Joe. So Scott Bessent has he has what he's called the three threes, or he calls it the three arrows after Prime Minister Abe of Japan. But his three arrows are different. He wants the deficits to be limited to 3% of GDP. So each year, whatever the deficit is, it'll be 3% or less of GDP. He wants real growth of 3%, which we have not done for a long time. The U.S. is capable of that, but from 2009 to 2019, for example, pre-COVID, growth over that whole 10-year period, an annual rate was 2.2%. There's a big gap between 2.2 and 3, obviously, and that's a lot of lost wealth left on the table. U.S. is capable of growing 3% if we reduce our deficit spending and get rid of some regulations. So that's a good goal. And he wants to increase oil output by 3 million barrels a day, which, again, it's an ambitious goal, but the U.S. is capable of that by expanding, leasing oil and gas exploration, leasing on federal lands, drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, drilling off both coasts, not wasting money on the Green New Scam, et cetera. So that is opening up Keystone XL pipeline. There are a long list of things you can do. So that is a very realistic goal. And you'll see the price of oil come down. Right now it's around $70 a barrel, give or take. Could come down to 40 or even lower with that increased output. So those are his 3 hours. They're all good. They're not all automatically within the purview of the Treasury Secretary. They're good goals, but you got to look at the Energy Department to help with the drilling, the Interior Department, the Office of Management and Budget has really the last word, along with the White House, on the budget deficit. So they're not all in his purview, but they're very worthwhile goals. And so he's off to a good start, and the stock market reacted favorably to his appointment. Having said that, there are a lot of things in the Treasury Department that are absolutely critical to national security that I would say even smart people, hedge fund guy, Wall Street professionals, et cetera, aren't even familiar with. For example, there's one, it's called CFIUS. You say CFIUS, people say, does it itch or burn? It's an acronym. It's Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. So what is Trump going to do? He's going to put up tariffs, right? So now you're a Japanese exporter. You got this big tariff wall. But what they're saying is, well, it's okay. You can sell things to Americans, but you have to make them in the United States. They're going to have to jump over the tariff wall by buying U.S. companies or else starting their own companies. Well, CFIUS is a national security gatekeeper. It's run out of the Treasury Department, and they get to say yes or no to foreign acquisitions of U.S. companies based on national security. And we've seen this abused in the past. So we sold uranium one to the Russians. Why are we giving the Russians all the uranium in the world? That was a Hillary Clinton scam that she perpetrated in exchange for money that went into the Clinton Foundation. That's a very important national security role. You got to get familiar with that. The Treasury Department is also the center for sanctions. We fight as much financial war as we do kinetic war. It's not just bombs and missiles. It's sanctions and confiscation of assets. We've done a lot of that to Russia in the context of the Ukrainian war. All of that comes out of the Treasury Department. The statute for that is, again, run by the Office of Foreign Asset Control. And a lot of people don't know this, but inside the Treasury Department, they have their own little CIA. There's an Office of Intelligence Analysis, OIA, which is an intelligence agency inside the Treasury Department that does a lot of collections and other analysis along these things. So the Treasury Department has a really big role in national security through CFIUS, through Office of Foreign Asset Control, and through sanctions and having its own intelligence agency. And a lot of people, one last thing, Joe, a lot of people say, well, the Fed's in charge of the dollar, or I look to the Fed to handle the dollar. That's not true. The Fed is in charge, the Federal Reserve, that is. They are in charge of monetary policy, but the role of the dollar is the role of the Treasury. That is not the role of the Federal Reserve. So again, it's a big C, very powerful. But what strikes me is that Wall Street is rooting on Scott Bessent's appointment because he'll maybe go slow on tariffs or a couple other things. He's got his 3 hours, but there's a whole list of national security things that most people are not that familiar with, and that may actually be the most important job of the Treasury Secretary.
I love the fact you just laid that out, Jim. This is why we love to have you on the show. Very, very important. We 60 seconds left. I want to get your take on commerce with Howard Lutnick.
He's a very good choice. Seasoned Wall Streeter. A lot of people. He was CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and he deserves a lot of credit. Cantor Fitzgerald they were in the highest floors of the World Trade Center on 9/11. So that firm was an enormous number of deaths, and the firm was practically wiped out. He resurrected the firm, kept it going, had a lot of help from Wall Street, and rightly so. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. So good leadership. A lot of people don't know what Cantor Fitzgerald does. They're a broker to brokers. So when the big banks, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, et cetera, trade government securities with each other, they don't want the other side to know what's going on. They want the anonymity. So they go through Cantor Fitzgerald. So that's kind of the nerve center of all trading to a great extent in the U.S. government securities market. So as a guy who understands markets, who understands the importance of the U.S. Treasury market. I know he's not Treasury Secretary, but Commerce Department is very, very important to that. Also has a big role in foreign trade. So again, he's a seasoned guy, very smart, a lot of leadership skills. So I think he's a very good choice.
Jim Rickards, if you're still looking for a holiday gift, go pick up MoneyGPT. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And when we were on Off the Record the other day, Matthew, we were saying that Jim is one of our favorite guests. That's what one of the people was asking. Who's the favorite guest that you've had on? Jim's name definitely popped in both of our minds.
Yeah, because we like people who know stuff about stuff, and he does. And so, someone like that is going to give you an opinion. You may disagree, but it's an informed opinion that comes out of knowing a lot of different things, right? So he can connect the dots. And Lutnick, I'd love to ask him even more about that. I mean, Lutnick should be big on tariffs with Trump's agenda. Very competent guy. He's been in charge of the transition, the private transition that's been going on the last 3 months, instrumental in organizing that. He's incredibly competent, very interesting. What's interesting about what we just heard is what he's implying is that Bessent is going to be on board for some of the program, but is he there for all of it? And you got a lot of people who are going to be working together, and who's going to be dragging who. If Bessent doesn't want to go along with some of these things that are more Trumpian, I think everyone else will. So anyway, overarching view that he just gave us is very positive, I think.